In our previous part of this video series, we looked at rotation of the shin. We've now, hopefully, with the previous exercises, opened up the rotation of the shin, so it's an accessible movement, but we need to bring it into meaning for us. We need to make sure that our legs can use it and apply it to the movements that we're doing. We could return to some knee cars, especially with a weight. In the previous exercise videos, you'll see that done. But here we're gonna look at a little bit more of loading it into functional movement, a bit faster and maybe more targeted towards a runner that's learning to use and load their knee and their shin more normally. This would be an excellent exercise to practice for anyone who's had a rotational injury to the knee, such as a pivoting injury, a tear of the meniscus, ACL, or other deep knee tissue, MCL, LCL, anything going on here, maybe even patellar or quad tendonitis, implying that we're not loading the knee very efficiently. I've got myself on my slippery floor here. If you don't have slippery floor at home, you can try to use some sliders for the carpet. You can buy some of those on Amazon. Here I've just got a sock on. You could add a towel or something else to give you a little less friction, but a sock and some hardwood or some tile should do just fine. As we talked about previously, we want to make sure that we're able to rotate the shin freely and that this doesn't really cause any pain or cost any effort. As we're doing this, again, we shouldn't really be feeling our foot and our shin doing a primary amount of the movement. It should feel like it's coming a little bit higher up, closer to the knee. In this exercise variation, we're going to practice the mechanics of the rotation that are part of the straightening and bending, the knee flexion, bending, and extension, straightening of the knee. We need to make sure that they're nuanced and applied with purpose and reason to what we're doing. So we start bend where we have more room to rotate. We're going to create a little bit of outward rotation, and we're going to come to a straightened knee. We're then going to bend just slightly, rotate inwards, and pull ourselves back in. I like to use my hands here to make sure that I can guide and feel my knee so that I know that it's not collapsing or splaying out as I do this movement. We're going to always make sure that we try to create the rotation on a slightly bent knee. If we don't, your whole leg just moves, and we want the rotation to come from the shin. It's not really as accessible as a movement when our leg is straight, our knee is locked into position. It naturally has a little bit of turn outwards from the construction of the knee joint. So by giving ourselves like a 10-15 degree bend, we've now got the space to add in the rotational control. Come through a few rounds of these. These are similar to the knee cars, but then we're gonna see, can we do them a little bit faster? Can we come through straightening with the outward rotation to the bending with the inward rotation without putting a lot of work in, without it primarily coming from our foot? This is what happens naturally when we do knee extension flexion. So it naturally happens at the knee. So we want to be able to do it also with a bit of pace. So again, rotating outwards, pulling ourselves inwards, and I've got my hands here just to try to make sure that I am keeping my femur, my thigh straight, so it doesn't look like this. On this movement, ideally we shouldn't need any of that guidance to be able to control it. If it feels hard to do one piece of the movement one way and the other piece of the movement the other way, we can start with creating the shin rotation and just practicing on bending and straightening the knee, keeping the femur, the thigh bone straight while we keep the shin rotation the same. We can then shift ourselves inwards, practice the same thing, practice our ability to rotate inwards and outwards at different knee bends, making sure we're able to control that, not just from our toe, not from our hip going back and forth, not feeling big cramps in our arch or along the inside of our shin. As soon as we can do that, let's add some load to it. And one great way to add some load is to start with some isometrics, which we're gonna perform here on top of the box. Isometric just means a static position hold. We're gonna use the exercise ball for a variation afterwards. And this is gonna be mostly loaded through our hamstrings. This exercise is especially good for when we see that there's a fault of rotational control coming into the swing phase after we've pushed off while running or walking. A lot of times you'll kind of see that as people bring their leg back through, their kind of foot splays out to the side, this is fantastic to work on that. So we're gonna look for our same shin rotation here. Again, it's not coming from the feet and it's also not coming from the thighs. If your thighs are moving all around, go ahead and grab something to put in between your knees so that we can really focus on the shin rotation. And we can, again, just move ourselves back and forth. We could practice one side at a time, both sides together, making sure it's nice and free and easy to move. We don't ideally want to have to use the block because it also encourages us to squeeze our thighs together, and that's just not really the purpose of this movement. We should hopefully be able to leave our knees just separate. We're going to create one of the motions that we talked about previously. So in this situation, I'm choosing the internal rotation, and we're just going to pull down into the box to lift our hips an inch, a centimeter, up off the surface. I've got no push going through my arms. You can also go palms up to make sure. And I'm just gonna hold and make sure both of my legs are working evenly at a balanced intensity. Rest and relax. We can then practice the same thing with the outward shin rotation. Because our hamstrings have multiple muscles, you're gonna feel that the workload shifts from the outside, so it matches kind of where your toes go, where your feet, your shins rotate really. When we rotate outwards, we're gonna feel the outwards part of the outer side of the hamstring. When we rotate internally, we're gonna feel more of the inside edge of the hamstrings. And we can just make sure that both of those feel nice and open and accessible for us. One might feel easier, one side might feel easier. Another way to progress this is to do it on just one. Hold, 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 hold. We're not worrying about how high we get into the air. We're just worrying about creating a nice quality muscle engagement and making sure that both legs feel even. We said previously that flexion or bending the knee comes most in tune with this rotation inward. So that's really the movement that we're focusing on with that pulling or that bending. We're then gonna switch out the box for our exercise ball. And we can also just create some of the same holds here if we want to. We can just lift and look for a little bit of stability. It's a little bit harder to hold ourselves up without swaying side to side. But again, we want to be able to control that internal rotation and that external rotation separately. The challenge here with holding ourselves up evenly might be the temptation to load one side more than the other. If I push down on my right, I'm going to go to the right. If I push down on my left, I'm going to go to the left. So this also helps if we have a dominance issue where we're missing some of that control on one side. Maybe after an injury or a surgery where we're really prone to use our strong side and we're trying to build back in the comfort and control on our recovering side. When we really start to get this movement going, we're going to want to create it within motion. I'm going to give myself a little bit of space here. Start with a fully extended leg and come into a lift. If we want it to feel a little bit easier, we'll put our arms down. I just always ask that people are going arms up so that we are not using our lats to create the movement. We're gonna bend slightly like we said before, pull our shins together, pull ourselves into our hamstring curl, return to neutral, and extend back out. Again, bend, rotate, pull, rotate, neutral, extend. Bend, neutral, pull, rotate, pull, rotate, neutral, extend, bend, rotate, pull, rotate, neutral, extend. Again, this matches a little bit more of the function of our hamstrings, controlling our knees within running exercises specifically, or hiking or biking. Any of those sports would do really well with this movement. We can speed it up, we can practice it on one leg. We should just be able to control whether or not we're rotating from our shin, from our femur, when we're creating this hip and leg movement.